basically, I'd like to talk about what you guys are most interested in, rather than just ramble off a bunch of stuff that I've done and I'm interested in. But I'll tell you a bit about what I do and who I am, so that we can start from that point. Starting with why I've got this name tag on. So, I just came. We had our first rehearsal for Strange Creatures, which is this project, our current project that's in Worthing. It's the first project we've done in Worthing, and it's the first project we've ever done in the town we live in. So we are Jennifer Irons is my partner. She in both the business and in my personal life, and she's a choreographer and a movement director and a performer, and I am a visual artist, and technology and bits of digital, and what we do together is usually working with people who aren't very well listened to in places that aren't very well liked, to make things that talk about both of those spaces and those people and their issues. That's our interest. We have never so far worked in a theater. We've never presented work in a gallery. It just isn't even one of our things. It just isn't where we're interested in working a lot of the time. What we like to do is put art in places where it isn't, and with the people that don't necessarily engage with it. Because to us, that's the group of people that will benefit the most from art. The art world is its own world, and it isn't that nice to each other nor itself, and isn't. I mean, it's great to go see art, but it's not as interesting. The experience isn't as interesting to us around people who are critical and very snobby about it. We'd rather work with people and work in places where they'll be very honest about how they feel about it, but not in a not trying to present their opinion so they sound like they know what they're talking about. They just tell you it's shit. That's nice. That's really cool. What the fuck is that? Things of that sort. Like, that's what happens. And it's really nice to work with people like that, because we feel more, I guess, more like them than we do like the art world in a lot of ways. But Strange Creatures is a new endeavor for us. So Jen does mass movement and choreography. She works with hundreds or thousands of people all the time to do mass movement. She's done that in her own personal career, but we've never done it with Make Amplify projects. So what we wanted to do here in Worthing is to make a project where we do mass movement, but also technology. So instead of doing what we've done before, which is a load of projection mapping and audio installations and audio video installations, we decided to do something we've never done before, to make it overly challenging and complicated and ridiculously hard. So what we picked was augmented reality, is to make a mass movement performance that interacts with augmented reality. So we're making an app currently that people will use for half of the performance, in which strange creatures will be living and breathing and moving around in the augmented reality space, and they will interact with the choreographed movement of the people, the mass movement. And that process is really challenging. Working in a small town, small city? I don't even know what this is considered. Is it a city? It's not a city, is it? Working in a town where nobody really knows what we're talking about when we refer to it, and they're not sure what it is we're doing, but we're trying to convince them to be a part of it, has been super challenging. So we were hoping to get, I think initially the Arts Council application that went in over a year ago for Tide of Light was to have 1,000 people, or 500 people or something like that. Then it was like 250, and then it was 100. Now we're hoping for 40 to 50 people to be a part of it, because trying to get people to do something like this, they just don't understand what it is we're talking about, is what we found. And I think next year, based on this experience, there will be lots of people who want to be involved because it was so cool. But this year, we're spending a huge amount of time just trying to get participants. And that is also something we don't do. We usually show up as artists, other people organize all the participants and get them together, and then we just show up and do our job. So this has been a massive learning experience in working with a small town, small town organization, and trying to negotiate that relationship in the most positive way, and understanding that we're both learning from each other about what this is and how it works. It has been very challenging. There's lots of learning going on both sides. It will be really amazing. I do believe the experience will be something that people haven't seen before, and it's super impressive to watch even just 8 people do the thing, let alone 40 or 50 people do the thing in the middle of the night or in pitch black. So Make Amplify started. Jen and I, as I said, are partners, and she didn't want to work with me for a load of time because she thought it would ruin our relationship. But then she found out that it wouldn't. I wasn't by any means trying to force it, because she's a woman not to be forced to do anything, but I thought it'd be a good idea because what we do together is quite interesting. So it took a bit of time. We did it for the Cultural Olympiad. We took over an empty shop in Harlow. I don't know if you guys know Harlow. Harlow is not that glamorous a place. And we worked in an empty shop in a not so glamorous place that was essentially run down and had a lot of crap in it. So the first thing we had to do is go clean it all up. And what we tried to do is we made a piece about the people that we worked with who literally came in off the street and we had cups of tea with and had conversations with. And we used old projectors, and we made a little tea area for her, for this one woman who we were working with. And we had an audio guided tour where they'd go around and listen to all these musical pieces or interviews. And the technology that we were using was pretty basic. It was like lights, really simple projectors, and MP3 players that they just press play and go to each tour spot on. It went really well though. It was really well received and people enjoyed it. We really enjoyed it, and we had people go from thinking that all Eastern Europeans were, just racist, essentially racist people, that then met the people that they were racist towards, had conversations with them and were like, oh, you're not so bad. So, that type of interaction happened, and older people met younger people, and were like, oh, you're not going to beat me up. And younger people met older people and were like, oh, you're quite interesting, So we did the thing that we were interested in, which is create an environment where people talk to each other and learn from each other about their experiences, and presented something in their area, in their hometown. So then we moved on to, I'm going to play some of this stuff in the background. So this is one of our first things we did, which is essentially go to the museum. I don't know if it's even going to play. The museum in Harlow, take some old photos, and then we had these ladies in UV lights kind of walking around and strutting and dancing. I doubt it's going to play. But this is one part of the installation. So they were walking around on the buildings. And this is kind of our first bit of mixing technologies. It's really basic. We filmed with black lights. This is where we also started working with black lights. So one of the things that we found about working with people in the public and kind of community members is that they weren't very comfortable being filmed, which is totally understandable. But if we turned black lights on and put them in white clothing, you couldn't see their faces, you couldn't see their hair, you couldn't see their sort of recognizable body or recognizable features. But you could see their body, and that's the thing that we were interested in, being as dance and technology and movement. So they really got into it, and it also meant that we got them to sort of be quite humorous and fun and playful about it. And that started down a process of using black light and UV light to create a lot of the movement pieces we made. So we moved on. So after this, we then got commissioned to reopen Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. And Adam and Jim saved our asses because our projector was not bright enough when they turned on all the lights in the stadium in this park. It was bright enough before that, but it was not bright enough after that. So an emergency call went out, I believe the night before.
It was pretty close. Yeah.
Possibly 2 nights before, but I'm pretty sure the night before. And fair enough, we were doing a 40-meter projection on a building which is challenging in itself. But, we're asking a lot from a 5K projector, and I think you guys had a 7 or a 10, but it did work. And we worked with a group of community members in an empty shop. Again, pretty much pulled them off. A few of East London Dance pulled them in for us, but it was really having more cups of tea with people, talking to them about their experience of living in the Olympic Park or living in Stratford and having the Olympics built all around them and what that was like for their lives. So it was disruptive. It was amazing. People who worked on it never got to go see it. So it was really interesting to listen to their stories and then try to make it into movement. And a lot of what I think our challenge is that we're a lot of our inspiration, what we make, we don't go in saying this is the story. We listen to people, and then that's what comes. That's how it's created. So it's really important to us that what we're doing is genuine, and that the people who participate in the project are actually the audience that we care about most. That they're the ones who feel as though what we've made represents their story and represents what they said, and they feel proud of it, and they're really excited about it. So that's really who our commissioning, even though they don't pay for it, they're the ones who we need to have the final say and have them be really happy with what we've done. That was incredible to make so in that project we had a download of the music. So there's a countdown of kind of 15 minutes, and every 15 minutes it would play, but you'd have a website that you could go to our website, download the audio, and you could listen to it in your headphones and press play on it's very basic, but press play on your audio player at the same time as it counted down to 0, and then you'd hear the soundtrack, which, even though we haven't done it again, is great, because loads of people are watching, just see it and think it's cool, and then you have some people who are having the full, genuine kind of experience with the audio video. Again, technology, I feel like nothing we do is like groundbreaking particularly, but it's using technology in ways that are interesting and really have to do with our sites most of the time as to how that can work. So in that site, there's no way we could have a PA loud enough or on all the time or safe, but we could have the installation running for 7 nights in a row, and they could download the track. So it was kind of, that's how it worked out, that's how we had to use it. Is there any questions about any of the specifics? Okay. This one was really good. I'll keep this in the background. So we then got asked to go back to Yukon, to Whitehorse, where Jen is from, and work with her first dance teacher, I believe it was, 25 years ago or something. It was crazy. So this woman is incredible and is specifically making a place for young people in the Yukon. So the Whitehorse is like as isolated as a place as you can get in the Yukon Territory, so next to Alaska. It's like 30 degrees below and dark 6 months of the year. So if you don't find a hobby, it's going to be drugs and alcohol. Even if you do find a hobby you love, it's going to be influenced by drugs and alcohol, and possibly take you down for the rest of your life. It's so pervasive in a place like that. So these young people were just incredible citizens, like not just artists and dancers. They were incredible citizens. This woman is doing an amazing job of making good people. And so we went there, and they took over. They had a small space in an old, I guess it was like a leisure center or a recreational center that had been, again, shut down or something. So we had a site which was something ran down with a bunch of crap everywhere, and each one of them made an installation in one of the spaces of their choice. So one of them was like a room with a pool table and black lights. So they made like a black light piece with different configurations. This is an old handball or racquetball court. And all we used were old lights, like lamps that were laying around, and did extension cables and a sound system inside of it. So the whole piece was made by them, as usual, not Jen choreographing it so much as us kind of taking her doing tasks and leading them, and then them making their own work. but the whole piece started by them just coming in and turning on the lamps. The acoustics of the room were really interesting. The movement was, yeah, I still love watching this piece. But again, it's responding to the site. Like a lot of what we do is respond to site-specific work. So we're interested in how to make the most of what you have and not wish that it was a theater rigged exactly right, because it's less interesting. But the experience with these young people was incredible for us. Yeah, I am going to lose myself in this, so I should probably make it smaller or turn it off or talk about something else. But it was a beautiful experience, and they were beautiful young people and so receptive to it. But it did definitely take them out of what they'd previously been in a studio making dance for. They also were like incredible b-boys, and loads of them, but made them think about how to respond to a space rather than just work from a black box. But again, the technology in this case was so basic. It was a couple lights and like an old stereo that they had, and flashlights in the old a kids area. What's it called? What's the Amazon one here? Amazon at Worthing Leisure Centre, where they've got
Soft play.
Yeah, soft play. So it was an old soft play area. So one of them did an installation, like did a piece in an old soft play area. So they like crawled around in all these pieces and turned on flashlights and then turned them off and then like would move through. And it's so interesting to me how when you take people out of the concept of a black box space or a theater and they have to work with what they have available, that the creative process is so much more interesting, because you can't just rely on things that will work. You have to figure it out yourself. And I think that's what we like doing that. We like having no choice but to do the best that we can with what we have. It's nice to have a budget, for sure, but if you have wonderful people to work with, that's usually good enough. Send Them Down. That was really interesting. So Send Them Down was Court's composer. So Adam and Jim ran a company called As Described, and we lived next to Jim for a while, and now we live next to Adam. And we have been working with them for now nearly 10 years, on and off in very different forms. But they taught us how to use Court's Composer in one of the programs that we use, and we used that. So we got a commission from Designer's Block to make a piece about I'm just going to read it from here. The old Sessions House. So this is where they sent people to Australia. If you were bad in London or in England, they'd put you down into the canal, send you off onto a ship, and you just have to go to Australia, which is really interesting. I mean, it's terrible, but it's a really interesting premise for a piece and sort of thinking about a piece. So what we did was rigged a camera from as tall as we could in a theater space, and then shot down. So everything we shot was from a completely, a straight down, was it straight down? Pretty much straight down perspective. And it was all sort of about the body falling and the weight of the body and sort of that process. But it was really, and then we had to, and the old Sessions House, the only reason we were in there is they were taking it over to put it into, to make it into a super posh social club. But of course the artist got to play in it beforehand. So I think we also had a piece of black plastic that we projected down onto in a rickety old building, and it had headphones that were there. But it was about texture, and it was about the movement of the body and sort of falling into space, and weight was really a big part of it. But again, I really like the feeling of this piece, and it was sort of taking perspective on in a different way and using Court's Composer, isn't it? That's what it was, Court's Composer, to do some of the effects on it.
So what's happening?
So we filmed from up top, from directly above, and they're sort of melting down and washing away, essentially, in a lot of it, and how the body sort of falls down and the weight of the body.
People actually moving.
Yeah, this is.
Just to explain the quartz composer thing, it's a visual architectural language. It sits on the mat. Unfortunately, it's defunct now. They've stopped using it, but for many years, it's a visual tool to allow you to be able to bring in this example, a live camera can be captured, and then you apply different looks and filters, and then what's great about it is it does it literally. It's like live After Effects. Just fires it through and out, and so that's what allowed Jen and Zach to have a whole palette to work with.
Yeah.
I guess, in terms of further expand how you wanted to draw the narrative and explain that, more than just a live camera view.
And again, it's taking away. I guess our interest isn't in beautiful people making beautiful shapes. It's in the body and how the body communicates. So when you take away people's faces and their hair, essentially you have to rely on how their body moves to communicate. You don't have any of the eye contact, any of the facial expressions, any of the sort of. Well, I think it's something like 90% of everything that you communicated is through the face, and so when you take that out, you have a big job of communicating what the body is saying, and that's always been something we're really interested in, but also sort of makes it anonymous. So if you know the people who are moving or dancing or performing, who they are. But no one's going to be like, oh, that woman must be from Jamaica, or she must be from.
The quartz is like another light in the way you're talking about the black light or the UV light, because it allows an abstraction layer to anonymize the participants in what you're doing.
Yeah, and you guys did it here with Geminate, which people loved. I don't know if you guys saw Geminate a couple of years back.
It was great.
It was wonderful, and it was so many people interacting with it, and it very much was, I believe, if they would have had a camera that you could see everybody through perfectly, wouldn't have been as effective.
It's super interesting, that thing about people participating and playing in a space, but knowing that there's a freedom in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because you by very nature of what you're trying to do with your work, you free people into a space, and they need to be all that they can be, or dream, or whatever, and it just that anonymity is really important.
And it relates back to you wanting to escape outside of the theatre, because Gemini is still one of the most popular things that's ever happened at the gallery, because they didn't have to come to the gallery.
Yeah. They could stand out on the sidewalk.
Go on the street.
Yeah.
It's also unexpected, you'd expect it, like, you didn't expect it, it was a real surprise,
Yeah.
I think that's part of the fun. Like you saying, going to places people don't want you,
Yeah. It's
happy interruption,
That's so, like when you guys do that, you turn up at a place, like you said at the start, like you get really blunt, direct stuff, because there's not any like, oh, I'm in an art space, I have to talk about this. So you're putting yourself into this space where people go like, and direct, and then there's all that joy and that brilliance that comes out of it.
And nearly getting. Well, I was threatened with a knife. So I'll move on to one of those pieces. But this is the good thing. It's people absolutely are positive and negative about it. So no, I'm going to do one more before. So Intotheswich. This is possibly one of my favorite pieces. I might play the whole thing because I absolutely love watching it, and I still love watching it. We moved to Ipswich. We never felt like we, not necessarily belong, because that's not the right word. We never felt accepted there, and it was really interesting to be in a place where people didn't. So a woman we met who had lived there 15 years said she wasn't from there, or didn't live, or like it wasn't where she lived, almost, because there's such a weird. It's not Sussex. It's Suffolk, isn't it? Yeah, Suffolk. It's a strange place. It was beautiful. There's loads of things that were incredible about it, but such an insular place. And we essentially made this as a sort of fuck you, and it was like we saw these beautiful things around, but people wouldn't recognize them, and so we just made a piece of art that we were really interested in. In fact, I think we didn't get Arts Council funding, and so because we didn't get it to do this big community-wide, county-wide project, we just said, well, fuck it, we'll just make our own piece about us and our feelings. And so we went around Ipswich. We kind of picked out our locations. We did get the town hall had so the council did have a couple lovely people who led us into the the biggest theater space, the Corn Exchange, and that was lovely. I mean, I guess being in a big space where everything's flat and you can sort of do your own lighting is incredible for some parts of it, and that was amazing. So I got to ride my skateboard across a stage with our lighting, and that was really fun, and you'll see where that kind of shows up. But this was definitely some of our guerrilla. This is where we started doing guerrilla projection mapping. So we stuck a projector out the window. Jen drove. I had a camera in the front seat that I was pointing out the window. The projector was out the back window, and the generator was in the back of our car. And we were driving around, projecting out of our car. And you can imagine there's only a certain amount of time that you have to do this before you're going to reasonably so piss people off or at least get some attention. So we did this, and it was wonderful because we did it late at night. We also had people wander upon us and just be very honest about how they felt about it and what was going on. But yeah, this piece I might just make you guys sit through it because I like it. I might sit down and actually watch it. But it definitely exemplifies what we're interested in and why we do what we do. So I didn't nearly get stabbed on that one, for sure. That one was quite nice. But as you can see, that one is a very very intimate, sort of very much about Jen and I just doing something for ourselves and not being about a commission or being about what we need to say or who we need to talk about. But because of that, I would say that the freedom that came with not having to work for anybody else was something that was really, even watching it now, it's very intimate. Like that is me and my partner, me and my wife, being together and making something that meant a lot to us, which actually led us to getting a couple jobs, which is nice. But with that one, it was definitely the start of going out and projecting in places where no one really thought that those places were interesting, if you know what I mean. Like the old co-op building, for instance, that whole place was, I think it was Age UK or something like that, and they had a 4-story department building that they just kept. Some was a shop, but most of it just crap, just everybody's crap, and no one cared about it. And it was the center of that of Ipswich, and where everybody you spoke to used to remember going to as a department store, and then it was just empty and like not being used for anything. And that is sort of a lot of what we're interested in, is all these old places, all these old mills, department stores. So it's called the wine rack, wasn't it? I think is what they referred to it. So the building that just stopped being built because of the economic crash. So in the middle of the harbour of Ipswich, which is quite beautiful, there's just an empty, like a half-built building that just, is beautiful in the sense that it is, instead of them trying to cover it up, they couldn't afford to. So you see this bare, obvious result of what happened to this economy and what happened within this country is when it just stopped. And that's really, it's you don't get many pictures like that anymore, where people sort of have to accept that it's not going as well as they'd like it to. And see it every time next to the yachts, because the yachts are parked right there, or moored, or whatever it is you say when you talk about yachts. And then there's an incredible building that was never built. That led to, though, the people who I have a long-standing relationship with Hull, and I've worked there. I went to uni there in 2000 for an exchange program, and I've been working there ever since. And I love the place, and it's amazing. That it got City of Culture was incredible and really good. Has its ups and downs, City of Culture, but it was a really wonderful experience. And we got commissioned to make a piece for it. And we got commissioned to make a piece about the benefit system and young people within the benefit system in Hull. So it's not a happy story, There's the people we interviewed about their experiences, and people we knew as very good friends about their experiences, were essentially they didn't want you on the benefit system, and so they did everything possible to make you stop using it, so they could say that you weren't on it. But the reason you weren't on it is because you couldn't stand it anymore, not because you had been helped by it so much that you didn't need it anymore. And so that's a really sensitive subject to be talking about, and also to be celebrating the City of Culture with. So, it's launching the City of Culture with, and I'll have this play in the background, but not have the audio on for this one. But it was our job to talk. Again, we interviewed with people. They were some of the people who did the movement within the piece, but it was our job to express that sort of story and not make it about sorrow and depression, but make it about what I love about Hull, which is people's ability to help each other out and to kind of very sarcastically talk about how shit it is, but not dwell on it within their life. Like, it's very sarcastic, and they talk, and they're very straight, and that's one of the things I love about people in Yorkshire, but certainly in Hull, is people are very honest to you about how they feel. And we had this, I felt like a very big responsibility to not make it shiny, because it wasn't a shiny story, but to make it about people's experiences. And when we filmed this, so we went up to Hull, I went up, I think Jen was 11, how many months are you pregnant? 9. She was 8 months pregnant when I went up to film, and then we had a baby when we went up to actually premiere it. It was madness. We were editing. I was editing with my child, one-hand editing, making it all happen. But we went out, and this is where I nearly got stabbed. Or I got threatened with a knife. I don't think he had a knife. That's why I don't have a stab wound. But I didn't think he had a knife. I think he just saw a bunch of kit and was like, give me your kit. And I was like, no, I don't want to give you my kit. He's like, oh, I got a knife. And I'm like, I don't think you do. But I am packing up and I'll be leaving soon. But yeah, people there, we went to an abandoned church. We went to an abandoned place where Jimi Hendrix used to play, one of the venues. We went to, we projected onto the benefits office. So job center. Yeah, we went to the job center and projected on that, which is where the knife thing happened. Projected on an old mill, and a lot of the people, just walked by as they should do, wondering what the hell we were doing. Luckily, at that point, the guy who commissioned us, who was the artistic director of that part, was with me. So I got a bit of clout with him for not, running away from all the equipment and going, yeah, here's my laptop. He thought it was pretty brave not to run away, but really I just couldn't afford to lose all the equipment, and they certainly weren't going to pay for it. So this was, that's Jen when she was really pregnant. So this is, I think most of the people from Hull, but this was, he saw our piece Intotheswich and was like, these guys are going to talk about this story and do it properly and not make it into something fanciful. They did all the projection mapping on this and had 25 or 20K, a huge amount of budget essentially to do all this, and we didn't have to do any of it, which was incredible. We just gave them the content and they made it work, which is amazing. We never get to do that. This is definitely the most high profile thing I think we've done. And we had, I think there was 300,000 people visited in the week of the launch. And so I imagine half of those people saw the piece. And a lot of the people from Hull that we met said it was the most, I guess, genuine piece of everything they saw. Because the other one was like Finding Cannibals and, what's his name? Norman Cook in his old band. What's that? House Martins, yeah, and all the things that Hull is somewhat famous for. But this was very much about people not being able to find work, getting shitty jobs, and leaving the benefit system unhappily. So, again, a story that we had to tell quite sensitively. But we went about it the way we do, which is go out and film it in places that we thought were and people would recognize. So they recognized. And we also had someone speak a small bit of text within it with a whole accent, so they knew it wasn't other people making it, or they knew that at least we were collaborating. What to say about this one? I don't know. It was. Oh, we went to the docks as well. That was quite interesting, because the docks, Hull being known for what it is like the fishermen that all don't have jobs and don't work there anymore. So it was all the docks and filming out in those places, which are, it's so I guess it's so beautiful. Some of the things that we're really interested in are the places that aren't nice anymore, but have so much history within them. So people would have resonated with the places that we filmed and projected onto, because they would have recognized them as the place their grandparents worked or they worked, but no one's there anymore and it's deserted. I feel like I've said that too much. So this piece was pretty awesome, and it was pretty incredible to have 300,000 people see your piece of work. We lived down here at the time. We had just moved down here and had a baby, and that was absolutely insane to try to make a piece while having a baby. And Jen was like breastfeeding in between like edits and going out to like do the premiere, and then like going home and having to make sure to breastfeed the child so that he lived or whatever. But very much a place where people were very honest about how they felt about it, which is nice. What else? I think that brings us up to sort of now, which is Strange Creatures. So you guys might be interested in, the other thing that we do and have been doing for 4 years, which I didn't mention at all, Museums in Motion. So we do a project in museums in Hertfordshire with young people. They take over the museum, make movement based on pieces within the museum, film that movement, project that movement onto that object, film that, and then make music banging on stuff and different objects within the museum. And we make some of the most out there art. It's so strange, a lot of it. We worked with some young people at Prus, do they still call them Prus? Yeah, Prus, pupil referral unit, so all the bad kids go to a school, which is obviously prison, in their next adventures, and a great idea, just get them all together and I'm sure it'll all work out for them. But they were incredible. And we do these projects and make crazy art, absolutely crazy art. But it's worth referencing. It's using technology and getting kids to do video mapping. So all of these are young people do the video mapping. So they sit on the computer with Resolume and do all the technology themselves. They film it all themselves. They record all the beats. They help bring together the music. The next version of it, we're going to have them make it all. But yeah, so this little box is like this big, and they've made the piece based on this object, this movement, and then we project that movement back onto the piece itself, the object. It is awesome. I love it. I love working with young people. I love working with young people and doing things that they had never thought that they could do, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's easy. You know, kids are totally on it and are completely capable. And what I love about this program is that usually it's young carers or people kind of in, what are they called? What are they referred to? It's not sensitive. What's the technical term? Not the technical term. The government's term for people who need help. Essentially, they're in a rough position. With a lot of these young people, they're caring for their grandparent or their father or their sister, and so this is kind of some type of activity that gets them out of that. And they're just wonderful. They're just super creative and surprise you all the time. But they make wonderful work. They make wonderful movement. They do all the video and have great ideas for filming, great ideas for projection, make funny noises on the music, start making their own beats. But it's one of the ways where we've found using technology, I guess this does actually helpfully come back, is using technology for people to engage with it rather than just be recipients of it, is not making it exclusive, but making it inclusive. I guess that's a lot of what our practice is. We're talking to Worthing Museum. We've had conversations. We are finding this council and this local government and all the people within it, besides you, Richard, and Claire. You guys have been awesome. Really challenging to work with. We've talked to the museum. Jerry at the museum is incredible. We really want to work with him. He's just enthusiastic and a wonderful person and want to spend time. He just seems like a guy that you want to be friends with, but certainly want to make some work with. But we haven't found any, like we have tried and we have gotten no response from anybody locally within the council to do anything interesting or work in the arts. So we'll keep trying. Hopefully some of the stuff we do here will get us more involved, and they might think, oh, these guys live here and they've been knocking on my door the whole time and maybe we should answer the door. So that's been really hard. It's just, within the arts, I think I was actually talking to you about within the arts, you do all these things and people think they're amazing, and then you ask them to help you and they're like, oh, well, yeah, we have a space we could let you use, but we don't really have any money and we're not, it's really hard. And we're just like, yeah, we know it's really hard. That's why we're asking for help. I don't know. We hope to we hope to continue to work here. That's why we're working with Tide of Light this year, and hopefully continually working with them to make something really interesting happen here. But we've never gotten to work where we live, and now we're trying for the first time to work where we live, and it's challenging, but it's well worth the effort if we get to then make these kind of amazing things happen and then see everybody afterwards. I think that's part of the thing that's really hard about making pieces where you don't live, is you do this incredible work, or you make these relationships and you make something really like spectacular happen, and then you just don't ever see anybody again. And hopefully here what we do is we make some work that people really enjoy, and then we get to see their kids at the park, and we get to see them at the pub, and we get to see them at restaurants, and we walk by, and we start to become a part of that community rather than just sort of, in a sense, be on the outside of it and talk to people about it and then leave. So that's definitely our interest, is we want to make work here and do the museums project here in Worthing with different groups of young people, because you could do the same program in the same museum and they come up with completely different results. And that's one of the wonderful things about having different people involved.
You go around in these spaces where there's some interesting places.
Yeah.
Buildings that have been set around for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I just haven't had, as we were talking about earlier, the energy after putting my child to sleep at 8 or 9 o'clock to go out and do some gorilla. Yeah, there's been less gorilla in Worthing because my exhaustion level is so high, and I go to sleep and then try to wake up and then go try to do some more. But the stranger, so the AR, so augmented reality. I got onto the Fusebox, the Arts Driver program. So all of this kind of culminated. So Questlab Network, that's a good place to start. So Questlab Network with Studio Wayne McGregor. Don't know if you know this guy or know. Wayne McGregor is one of the sort of probably top 5 or 10 choreographers in the UK. He does a lot of the movement capture or motion capture for movies. So that's how he makes his bread and butter and his money now. Is he works with Disney and Pixar and things like that, so he'll do the Disney everything. So Disney, he works with Disney, and he's the one who helps people to do the movement and the bodies of motion capture for animations. So he's really interested in dance technology, and we got onto a residency with him, and they gave us a bit of money. It was an incredible residency, but definitely out of it there was there's volumetric capturing or volumetric. It's where, so they have like 300, 400 cameras. Every movement that you make can be captured and then plot. It's not even on points. It's beyond. It's the next version of that. So volumetric capture is where you can have people doing movement, and as long as the kind of, you can't have anything reflective. You can have, what I thought of when I saw it was, this is super creepy. People are going to do things that haven't actually been done and then say it happened, and then everybody's going to believe it. And we're all screwed because the news gets a hold of that and produces like someone being stabbed or someone dying, and it doesn't really happen, and you believe it completely. They said, no, for sure it can't work like that. Like, people would know, and I was like, believe you, this is super realistic.
Can you so with mocap it's skin tight with dots?
Yeah, with this it's a smaller space, so it's like there's no, you don't do it.
I could wear this.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't have reflective.
Okay.
So as long as the camera doesn't get a reflection back, so you can't wear mirrors, and you can't wear, I guess that's fairly obvious, but some people apparently tried to wear mirrors in it and it didn't work. You can't wear things that are reflective, because then the camera just gets a white light or gets a reflection from the massively well-lit space. But that's quite interesting, but again, quite creepy. And I don't think they're using it for very interesting ways. They're like doing Michael Bublé, or whatever, like pop stars essentially being in a place where, like, I guess that would have been what Tupac. Yeah. It's corporate stuff. That was super cool, but all the rest of it, virtual reality is sort of escaping into another world. Definitely what we're doing is trying to bring people together and to make them feel like they're connected to other people rather than isolate them and put them in their own space or keep them in their own houses. I think that's why the mass movement, why we're interested in bringing people into an AR experience. But so instead of looking at their phones isolated and by themselves, they're looking through their phones or devices with a big group of people experiencing something that also has a big group of people in front of it. And so we found augmented reality to be the most interesting of the emerging technologies. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? It's emerging technology. So VR, AR, volumetric capture, and then a couple other that I just wasn't very interested in, so I probably forgot them, or at least don't know the reference points now. But because of that, we got some seed funding, and we met a super awesome creative technologist guy named Chris, who we're now working with. And you can imagine, maybe you guys are creative technologists in a way, but you can imagine creative technologists to be pretty geeky and not very relatable in a lot of ways.
Not in my experience.
No.
They expand arts and technology, I found. That's why they've got that job.
That's why they're creative technologists and not just technologists?
Yeah.
I find, some of them don't talk to you. They talk away from,
Yeah, that's all technology.
Yeah. But I found, so this guy is super personable. Chris is a lovely guy to be around, and he's really enthusiastic, and he knows what he's doing. So it's really wonderful to work with him. So we started working with him, and then we got some more Arts Council funding, or we applied for some more Arts Council funding and applied for the Arts Driver program, which I'm on over at Fusebox. And Fusebox, I don't know if have you guys, I'm sure you guys know about it or have been there. Wired Sussex, yeah. Right. Have you guys been to Fusebox before? No. Definitely go to Fusebox, or come along with me. I'm there, I've got residency for the next couple months. They have so many really interesting people doing really interesting things in the desk spaces, and then they've got all of the kit, like everything. So what we found through the process of going through Arts Driver is sort of another introduction to all these technologies, but also to be able to play with them quite accessible. So we could just go, can I use that? And they'd be, yeah, just bring it out for you. So they have all of the headsets, all of the different versions of the headsets. So do you guys know Tilt Brush? Yeah. Google Tilt Brush is the only reason virtual reality was made, as far as I'm concerned. All the other bits don't matter. It is the coolest thing. It is so much fun to play with. It's a 3D sculptural program that you can just make things as big or as little and as detailed as you want with all these brushes and colors. It's so much fun. I think the way that the creative technologists I've been speaking to about it is it's the embodiment. So instead of doing Unity, so I'm also using Unity. It's like loads of inputting data and X and Y and Z and numbers and 0 to 300 or 0 to 100. And it's just, it's just another program to do loads of numbers in. And not get something right and it totally ruins everything or it doesn't work at all. Where like Tilt Brush is like, you can sit in there and have any color, any texture. It's just so much fun and it's so enjoyable as a process because you can move around completely. And the new one also has the handset that isn't even connected, so you can just be in a space. And they've got this huge room that has all the sensors, so you can walk around as much as you want. So what we're doing is making our content for the AR, some of our content for the AR app in Tilt Brush, exporting it from Tilt Brush into Unity, and we're drawing our own world that we're creating for this AR app instead of buying other people's content and prefabs. No, it's not prefabs. Assets, yeah. So we can make our own now, and that's been an incredible leap because before I was just looking through like how many jellyfish there were and like how many sea creatures and sea fluff or whatever it was, just trying to find all these things, and then it's like, oh well, we can make our own and we can just import it, and we can also make it the color we want it, and we can make it the scale we want it, and we can do a diagram within the space and then draw our entire world. So it's been that Tilt Brush has been such a instead of trying to build it in Unity, we've decided to build it in Tilt Brush where we can actively be a part of that process and not just do ones and zeros and numbers. And it's made a big difference to the creative process because we also then asked the guys who make Tilt Brush, so who's used it? Have you guys used it at all? So at the beginning of it, when you open up a project, it shows you the process of what you've made. So when you go and make it, it will then play you essentially a video back of what you've made it and how you've made it. So it will draw all over again. So now we're asking Tiltbrush in Google, can we get the file and extrapolate it, the process of us drawing it and making it, to then animate that, so that not only are we creating content, but we can do it in a way that plays how we've created the content. So we can animate the process of creation so that when you see it in the AR app, you see it being made. And you see it sort of moving around, and we can do it to the music. Because what we're doing is creating it to the music and doing all these things to the music. So it's like we're pushing loads of these technologies in ways that are people like, oh, I don't know if you can do that. Everyone thought, should you do that? And that's the interesting part about, I'd say, artists working with technology, is we're asking questions because we don't know what it should do or can do. We're going like, well, how about we try this? And people just don't have answers for you at this point, which is great. They look at us when we're saying we're doing a mass movement AR app. They're like, well, you're not, what? Like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Like, how is that going to work? And we don't have the answers exactly, but we're like, well, it's worth a go, right? Like, what if we brought a load of people in to use this app together, and they felt like they were a part of something together rather than sort of isolated? And that's one of the interests within it. But it's also, how can you use technology? How can we start shaping how the technology, where it moves to, by coming up with creative solutions or challenges to them to say like, yeah, but so a lot of the things that are side elements to them, we're really interested in those side elements. And so we ask them, can you do this? And they're like, yeah, well, you're not supposed to. That's not really the answer we're looking for, you know? Not really supposed to isn't what we want to know. We want like, but can you do it? And how can you do it? And if you do it, what happens? And it may be that our performance breaks and doesn't work at all. And that's always been like a possibility, is we go and do this amazing thing and it just doesn't work. It could just not work. But trying to do something that we know will work isn't very interesting. Trying to do something that we're not sure is going to work is definitely interesting, because it's new and it's really hard, I guess. And that's the part that we keep doing, is using technology in ways that you're not supposed to do it, or that people haven't done it before, because that's our interest.